Hey, Leading Hope community. A little bit of a different start to the podcast over this month. I'm so excited. This month, I have a book coming out, and it's very different from the content of this podcast. This is not a leadership book. It's about faith, how people lose it, what happens when faith has been left behind, and how to rebuild it. The book is titled Reconstructing the Rubble. It doesn't release nationwide until March, but if you want to be a part of the launch team, you can go to behope.church/book to get an early copy of this book and help us get the word out to others. Thanks so much for being a part of this, and here is our Leading Hope podcast.
Welcome to the Leading Hope podcast with Kevin Jack. Your influence will lead people somewhere, lead them towards hope. Everyone has 20 minutes to learn to become a better leader. Make it count.
Welcome to Leading Hope with Kevin Jack. I'm your host, VJ Williams, here with my friend and pastor, Kevin Jack. Thank you for joining us and taking time out of your day to become a better leader. We release a new episode every Wednesday, so we'd love for you to share on social media and bring others along with us on this journey of becoming a better leader. Visit leadinghope.online to get updates and find out more about the Leading Hope community. If you're new to the podcast or haven't yet subscribed, we will give you an opportunity to do that now. It would mean the world to me, as we have found out in the past, and Kevin will appreciate it. And also post about it, rate and review, and obviously subscribe if you haven't. You will not believe how that helps us get this podcast into so many more leaders' hands like yours. And today we are in episode 49, one away from 50.
One away.
The big 50.
What's happening on 50?
The 50, we're going to go live.
We're going live?
Yeah, we're going to go live. It'll be actually broadcasted live. We'll still put it on Wednesday, but we'll give you a date and time for that later. But this is episode 49. Seasons, you have titled this.
Seasons.
Yeah, seasons. I like that.
So this is just a little,
sounds like a song.
Not a part of a series, single standalone episode. The idea for this one actually came up while we were recording one of the previous episods.
Yeah.
And talked about identifying the season.
Yeah.
Are you remembering any of this?
Yes,
okay.
I do. I'm with it. We said we should call that a series. But it didn't turn into a series.
Well, I worked on it, and I was like, no, there's just... So I'm going to move quickly through the content here. But the idea that came up was this thought of saying, hey, life has different seasons, and how do you know the season that you're in? So a little bit of content around the initial idea to just put our focus there. Your actions should change based upon the season that you're in. And so if you think about it in terms of athletics, like in sports, there is an off season and an in season. And your actions should be different based upon which one you're in. Where when you're in season, you're focused on conditioning. In off season, you're learning new skills. Where in season, you're focused on maybe the strategy. Off season, you're learning new concepts. Where in season, you need to develop chemistry with the team. In the off season, it's really a large focus on the individual and what you're doing personally to get better. And so we understand this in sports. We understand the idea, let's say, again, from athletics, you can't be in peak performance all of the time, but you better be in peak performance at the right time.
That's good.
You can't always step back and evaluate, but you had better eventually step back and evaluate. So I was thinking through this stuff. We had a message the weekend we do called Best Weekend Ever that was on time that really got me thinking about this. And there's a passage in the Bible in Ecclesiastes 3, and it starts with this. There's a time for everything and a season for every activity under the sun. And then the writer Solomon gives a lengthy description of different seasons. And so he talks about there's a time to be born, a time to die, to plant, to uproot, to kill, to heal, to tear down, to build, to weep, to laugh. And it could go on forever. Like his point is not to give an exhaustive list of all the different types of seasons. It's just to go, hey, there's different seasons in life. And the difficulty of one season is not forever in the same way as the success in another season is not forever. And so it's acknowledging, hey, you're going to go through, I feel like I've now said this word 80 times so far already in this podcast, different seasons in your life. But let me say it like this. If you don't know the season you're in, you won't maximize the moment and you'll be unprepared for the next season. If you don't know the season that you're in, you won't maximize the moment, and you'll be unprepared for the next season. The player who has not trained during the off season is not ready when the next season comes around. And so I just want to help you identify that. I want to help you kind of see that. Hopefully up until this point in time, all of that logically makes sense. And you can go, okay, like a couple of things that are just obvious. Like for me, I take my vacation very strategically throughout the year. There's some weekends that are just better for me to take off than others. So I end up being gone about the exact same weekends, not just number of weekends, but the exact same weekends every year. For me personally, I build my personal development pieces very early into my week, because once I get later in the week, I want to be laser focused on the message, because I preach every weekend. And to go, if I'm trying to read large amounts of content on Thursday, it's going to mess up with my memory, and it's actually going to seep its way into the message. And so how I set up my year, how I set up my week, it's understanding those seasons. So practical things, how to identify the season. And there aren't massive, like, hey, there aren't macro things here in terms of seasons. There's some principles that can be applied. And so the first question that you need to ask yourself is, what is the cycle of your work? What is the cycle of your work? And you could look at that annually. You could look at that quarterly, but I also think you need to look at it weekly. And the key questions that you're asking: when do you need to be at your peak? When do you need to rest? And when do you have time to improve? What is the cycle of your work? When do you need to be at your peak? When do you need to rest? And when do you have time to improve? If I give just like a note here of be at your peak and time to rest, one of the early mistakes I made with a family is I didn't understand the rhythm of the day. And I would try to go out and do stuff at like 6 p.m. And that didn't work. Yeah. And I had to learn the idea of just going. And at first I thought the thought was, well, I don't have any free time. Now that we have kids, I don't have any free time because Bethany always wants me home with the kids. And go, no, I have free time. Yeah. It's just after 9 p.m. or before 7 a.m. And some of you may look at that and go, oh, and it was freeing for me, is to go, the day has seasons within it. There are seasons in which I can be selfish with my time and seasons in which I can't. And you may just need to log off right now and go think about that, because that may be a source of your family issues and tension right there. Definitely. Is you're being selfish in the wrong season of the day. So what's the cycle of your work? Second question. Are we, in terms of your team, company, organization, are we in conquest or consolidation? Are we in conquest or consolidation? And so a conquest season is a time in which you need to have peak performance, you make tweaks, and you move fast. A consolidation season is when it's time to regroup, a time to reimagine, and a time to rest. And so, if I could talk about this church-wise for just a second, there's big holidays, there's big weekends. That's not our time to try something new. Yeah. It's our time to do what's tried and true. Not getting crazy on some of them we get a little crazy, but we know the things that we should be doing because those are prime
calculated risks.
Yeah, exactly. And we've got other seasons that will go, hey, let's try it. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. Nothing lost. With our family, whenever our kids are in sports, so we're in the middle of soccer season right now for our family, that's conquest season. That's performance. Yeah. We're running, we're moving, we're making quick updates to the schedule. We don't have time for how do we want the rhythm of our family to flow. This is not the time for Bethany and I to have long conversations about the future of our family. We have it before the season or after the season, but not within the season. We make quick tweaks in the moment and we move forward. So you're asking, what is the cycle of your work? Are we in conquest or consolidation? And then the last question that I think is really important is you need to ask, how long is this season? If you're in school You're in a season, okay? That's what school is. It's a season of your life of development so you can be ready to do the thing you want to do. Some of you hate school but want a job that the schooling will bring you. I've got good news. The schooling isn't forever.
Yep.
It's just a season. You know what the end date is.
Yep.
But we have that through our formal education of the schooling we have to go through. But there's other seasons of development of like when you get a new job, there's a learning curve. The learning curve isn't a decade, but you need to make a guess as to how long you think that is. Because when you're in the learning curve, it's not as fun. It's not as enjoyable. You don't feel competent to do the work that you're doing. As I go, I think I'll be in the learning curve phase for about 3 months. And you just know, like it resets your expectations in terms of what you're doing. If you're in a performance season and you're in like, I got to go, you go, hey, how long do I think this season is? And you're not going to know exactly, but this is what that enables you to do, is by giving that just estimation, giving that guess as to how long you think the season is, it makes it less likely that you're going to drop out of the season before you're supposed to. It makes it less likely that you're going to move on to the next season before this current season has been completed. And we would all think it is ridiculous to watch a professional athlete enter off-season mode in the middle of the playoffs. Like you're in the middle of the playoffs and you're sleeping in and hanging out and gaining weight. We'd be like, that's ridiculous. But I think we do that a lot in our lives. I think we don't realize the length of the season that we're in. And so we drop out and we enter a time of rest when we should be moving faster, or we try to perform when we're in a time in which you're supposed to be resting. So here is the question that I think you need to answer. In light of all that content, my hope is that you will just learn to regularly ask this question. In light of my future desires, what is the most significant thing that could happen this season?
Ooh.
For the life I want to live, if you're a family person, the family I want to raise and be a part of, for the career I want to have, for the person I want to be. What is the most significant thing that could happen this season? And to note this, it's a season. It's not forever. Commit to it, get through it, and be better because of it.
That's fantastic. You know, you have those 3 different identifiers, which I hope everyone writes those down. I just did myself because those are something that I think everyone can benefit from. What is the cycle of your work? Are we in conquest or consolidation? People are usually confused.
Yeah.
And so identifying that right away is a major, major thing, like from the get-go.
And the note being, you're not always in conquest.
Right.
So when you're in consolidation, your life isn't wrong.
Right.
It's a season.
Right. And knowing that is, half the battle. And then how long is this season? That's so good. We've talked about habits and the rhythms of our lives. We talked about how important our weeks are and the rest in the weeks, and seasons sometimes are very similar to your week in that regard. Yeah. And, what I wrote down here, what the end is in general, unless you're in most cases, unless you're in a pandemic. Like you talk, you talk about a school, in most cases outside of pandemics, you're in control of the end in most of those things.
Yeah.
Outside of,
Well, let's even bring that back just for a second. You mentioned the pandemic.
Yeah.
I think that was the issue most people had, is even though everyone from the start was saying this is going to be here for a while, most people got 2 months in and then panicked.
Yeah.
It was like, wait, we knew this. Like, we knew life was going to be different for a long time. We didn't know how different.
It's exactly right. But, generally, like you tell you, school's a great example because we see people see what the end is and start to allow that to weigh down their minds and body. And they talk about how leaders, I guess here's what I really want to know. How can leaders make that a positive, utilize the season to their benefit instead of their demise?
Ask it again.
So we talk about that, knowing that if you commit to something, because that's what it is. We have in here, in light of what future desires, and those things, at the end of the day, most of the time, if you're committing to a season, you know what the season looks like and you know what the end is. You know what you want to accomplish in that. But we allow, instead of, a lot of times we look at that as what should be a positive as a negative, and it weighs us down so much that we don't ever get to the end. And if we do, it wasn't joyful in the moment. Like, what do we look for? What are we doing in the season to make sure that our eye is on the prize and not on all the circumstances that go along with it?
Yeah.
It's a tough one.
I love the idea of, so I'm gonna turn this in our leadership podcast again.
Yes.
Because we're pastors.
Yes.
Faith-based very quickly. It's just to acknowledge that Scripture says that God gives us new mercies every morning and grace for today.
Oh, that's good.
And that we should not worry about tomorrow because it says tomorrow has enough worries on its own. And so the ability to give the centrality of the now and to be able to go, we are here. We can figure out that problem later. We can do this later, but we are here. Mm-hmm. And so what are we supposed to do while we're here?
Yeah.
Because we're not there yet.
Yeah.
And I think I'll say it like this, it's a discipline to stay focused on what is in front of you and what is in your hand that you can handle in the moment.
Yeah. And look at it as a blessing.
Yeah.
That if you're generally, when we talk about seasons, the season we're in means that you're actually in something to accomplish something.
Yeah.
It's not a season of just whatever, right? I guess it can be, but generally when we're talking about being leaders, a season is a season, good or bad, that you have something to either get yourself out of or accomplish something. And at the end of the day, I think a lot of people look at it as at first, it's an exciting opportunity until it becomes something that you don't want to deal with anymore.
Yeah.
And that's a hard thing to, in your mind, have the discipline that you just mentioned to mentally overcome that space that fills these two ears.
So I would say within this of saying, I want to give people this framework because I think this framework will change. A framework of naming the season and knowing what matters will change how we look at the moments that we're in. But there's another side of this. Like, that's a tool to help you maximize the season. But if you're unable to maximize the season, and as you alluded to, of stay in the season and always be worried about 1,000 other things, that's not a leadership skill issue. That's a character issue.
Oh,
like an inability to stay in the moment. It's not a skill.
Yeah, it's a
character fault that needs to be developed.
That's good. With all of this said, what are, I know that we've gone through, so talk about the difference between, if there is a difference between rhythms and seasons, or are they the same? Is conceptually season just a longer rhythm?
No, that's a fair assessment. I would say it like this. Not that for those of you who are listening, the terminology distinction doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Okay. So like, don't think of like, oh, this is a rhythm, this is a season. This is just how I define it is rhythms are natural, like rest, work.
Yeah.
Rhythm. We all go through it.
Yeah.
You're going to do one. If you don't do the other, your body's going to die.
Yeah.
As a matter. Where seasons, like Solomon gives his list, embrace. And this is my favorite. If I can acknowledge this, because I'm literally just seeing this right now. He says, a time to scatter stones and a time to gather them, a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing. Solomon predicted social distancing in the book of Ecclesiastes. He's like, guys, this is a time to refrain from embracing. But a season is... you decide what the season is. Like, you name it.
I think that's the powerful piece of it. And I agree, like, trying to differentiate between names is not important. It's more important that we actually call it what it is so that we can work through it.
So you say, like, planning, performance, evaluation, those are rhythms. That's part of life. They have to be there. So one of the things our team does is we get away 3 times a year and we say, what one thing, if most significantly improved, would make the greatest impact in this next season? and then we name it.
Yeah.
Like we decide what the season is.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, that's the distinction. That's a powerful distinction. I like that a lot. You kept talking about Solomon, and then I heard the word Simon, and I'm thinking about the group Simon Garfunkel, and then I'm thinking of the song "Hello Darkness, My Old Friend." I don't know what's going on here.
Wow.
But yeah, then reading your,
this went off the rails in a hurry.
No, I could see those notes right there, and I'm like, that is crazy that he predicted that.
That's my new favorite. I'm gonna get that up on our church somewhere.
That is
Ecclesiastes 3:5.
Oh.
Hey guys, there's a time to embrace, but this is the time to refrain from embracing.
I love it, man. That's great. Hey, listen, we got big high at the end of this. Big energy on the podcast today at the end. Hey, that's all we've got time for today. What do you want someone to leave with today, Kevin?
I want you to be equipped to know, hey, the season that you're in matters. And while you get to name it, you need to be aware of the circumstances and context that you're in. And don't pull out of an important season because you're bored, because there's more to happen. Maximize the moment and stay in the moment to accomplish what you're there to accomplish.
That's awesome. Hey, guys, thank you so much for joining us. Episode 49, Seasons. What a great episode. Hey, thank you so much. If you're new to the podcast or haven't yet subscribed, it would mean the world to us if you did that now. Also, post about it, rate and review, or both. You won't believe how that helps us get this podcast in the hands of so many more leaders like you. Next week is episode 50. We will be live. We will announce a time for that. We'll still put up the episode as normal on all of the platforms. So if you aren't able to catch it live, we will certainly be able to get those on all the platforms that you do. And remember, we love hearing your stories or how the podcast is working in your life and business. If you have a story, visit leadinghope.online and send that to us. We would love to hear from you. And remember, everyone has 20 minutes to learn to become a better leader. Make it count.